Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and earlier this week the PlayStation 5 Pro was revealed by Sony. The reaction online has been less than favorable, although we do have information to go over today that shows that some people are willing to pay for the PS5 Pro, but for me, I'm not in on the PS5 Pro, not only because of the heinous price tag, but also I personally feel like I'm still waiting for developers to take full advantage of my Series X, my PS5, where I still see a ton of major sacrifices being made. I think of games this generation like Gotham Knights, which had no right being at 30 FPS in my opinion, but we're seeing the limits of some developer talent across the board where sacrifices are being made big time. We're getting performance modes that are incredibly blurry. And the solution the PS5 Pro does propose is the idea of, hey, you don't have to make a choice, if you will. You can get 4K 60. But we also have information from a former report of The Verge suggesting that the upgrades may be extremely minimal if you are PS5 Pro Enhanced. And there is much to be said about PlayStation 5 Pro, but I think we need to at least get some good deals in our system. So let me tell you about today's sponsor. If you love yourself a good deal while also supporting the developers who make the games you love, then look no further than Green Man Gaming. They're also not only giving you good deals on older games, but newer games like Warhammer Space Marine 2, God of War Ragnarok, Final Fantasy 16, and more. Green Man Gaming is a leading official PC game retailer, and they work directly with over 1,300 publishers and developers to bring games to everyone worldwide. You should really look into their loyalty program called XP Gold, which allows you to get exclusive access to the best discounts, vouchers, and additional offers available at GMG. All you have to do is head to the link in the description down below, add the XP Invitational Pack to your basket, and use the voucher GMG XP SEP at checkout to reduce the price to $0.00. From there, you'll have an XP Gold status attached to your account, and boom, you've got yourself some of the best deals in gaming. So get the best deals while supporting the developers and publishers you love, and shout out to Green Man Gaming for sponsoring today's video. I do think the PS4 Pro managed to justify its existence as well as the Xbox One X, simply because it was a long generation. And I do feel like based on how the generation progressed with how long it was, developers were having a bit of a tougher time squeezing as much power out of the PS4 and Xbox One since they already had pretty weak hardware packed into them at the time of their release. But when you look at the gameplay comparisons that have gone online for the PS5 Pro, it's not substantial enough where people are really picking up what Sony's putting down. I will say in fairness that video compression plays a major factor. Like, it's extremely difficult in any YouTube video to pick up some of the finer details that may stand out more when it's on your television screen in front of you. That said, this is why I mentioned that PlayStation should have had a game ready of some caliber, whether it be third party or first party, something that really showcased the true power of the PS5 Pro, not such minimal differences that an $800 asking price would be okay for some. Then again, it could be lower. GameStop is doing a pretty insane trade-in offer where they're giving you like $415, I think it is, or up to that on your PS5, which is pretty intense. I can't lie. Not the biggest fan of GameStop, but being able to get a PS5 Pro for like less than half the price is pretty good stuff. Still, I've seen the conversations going online about how much you'd have to pay to get involved in 4K 60 gaming on PC and how the PS5 Pro is technically a good deal, but I do think we have information today that flies in the face of that. And also, I just look at the Steam Deck and I'm like, that's entry-level PC gaming. Like, if you want entry-level PC gaming, it's there, it's available for you, and it's cheaper than the PS5 Pro, and you do get to carry your whole Steam library over there, and games are generally cheaper there. Final talking point before we get into the news is I think this is going to be a really big test for a lot of players out there. I say that because the reaction online has suggested to me people aren't ready to pay this sort of price for hardware that is brand new. I wonder if that would change if accompanying that new hardware were like new exciting games, but I do think this is a price tag indicative of where we're heading next generation, where I could totally see a starting price tag nearing that $1,000 mark. And I think people should start preparing themselves for that reality if the sticker shock is real for you here. Anyway, those are just some early opening thoughts. We have more information to back all of this up, so let's get into it, starting off with the peripheral selling really well for the PlayStation 5. As Wario64 has showcased, the PS4 Pro / Slim disk drive is currently the number 8 in the best sellers on Amazon overall, and it's sold out for shipping at Best Buy. For those who have not caught up on the situation, The PS5 Pro is a digital-only system. No doubt this is a play by Sony to remove any sort of splits that they'd have to share with retailers or printing out physical copies. They do get maximum dollar when you buy your games digitally, which is why they have reward programs attached to it. Same thing for Xbox, same thing for Nintendo. But when you look here at the PS5 Pro, it being digital only, the sign here is that, oh, they announced the Pro, and now we have the disc drive selling a crazy amount. And what's more intense about this to me is it's suggesting that people not only want the PS5 Pro, but they are willing to pay the close to, well, actually, I'm sorry, with tax included here, and that's not even accounting for if people are buying the stand, the over $800 price tag that this will end up being. You know, I was mathing it out for myself, and this would be a almost or over $900 purchase for me if I got everything I needed for the PS5 Pro. And that's a little too rich for my blood, personally. Still, if you track PlayStation closely like myself and many others do, you'll know that this is, again, kind of par for the course. Like, they had the PS Portal, it came out, it didn't review super well, and it also had a kind of sticker shock moment as well, where people went, I'm not going to pay that much for a streaming device, and it sold out, and it sold really well. So this goes back to the talking point I've had for years now, which is that PlayStation very much wants to be Apple. And I've seen a lot of other people start to pick up that talking point. So I'm glad it's making the rounds. But yeah, like, this is what I've been saying for a while. This is very Apple-like behavior. Like, they're going to find success within their own ecosystem and sell out no matter what, because they do just have that kind of grip on gaming. Now, I referenced a report from The Verge. Again, I want to give you a heads up that this report did arrive April 16th, 2024, but it does give us a really good look at certain details on the PS5 Pro that I think are difference makers, and we're going to talk about it here and now. To kind of back up what they're saying here, I do want to highlight that they mentioned here things like PlayStation's new Spectral Super Resolution upscaling tech. These are things that were announced just earlier this week. Insider Gaming also reported on it. So continuing on, they say, while Sony wants this new mode in games, the PS5 Pro Enhanced Label will still be available for a variety of other scenarios that include 30 FPS games. Developers have the option of increasing the target resolution for PS5 Pro games that run at a fixed resolution on PS5, or even increasing the target maximum resolution for games that run at a variable resolution on PS5. That could mean we see PS5 Pro Enhanced games that run at between 1080p and 1440p resolution at 30 FPS on the base PS5, and run between 1280p and 2160p on the PS5 Pro at the same frame rate. A fixed resolution increase from 1440 to 2160 would also qualify as a PS5 Pro Enhanced game. Developers could also choose to enable ray tracing effects and get the PS5 Pro Enhanced label without improving resolution or frame rates. If a developer wants to target 60 FPS instead of 30 FPS with the same resolution, this may also qualify as a PS5 Pro Enhanced game. So I hope you are seeing the potential trickery that could go on here if you are PlayStation, and how easily you could benefit from this, in that someone could literally, and it's not this simple, by the way, to like bake into the game, but flick on ray tracing, for lack of a better term, and it's PS5 Pro Enhanced. No changes to the resolution, no changes to the frame rate, just better lighting, which is a thing that makes the game look better, don't get me wrong there, but it's more lighting tech than actual frame rate and resolution here, which is what PlayStation was selling during their presentation, of like the idea of you won't have to pick between these two. And honestly, I'm just waiting for consoles to get to that PowerPoint, and maybe the PS5 Pro could be the start of that, of more customization. Right now, consoles are defined by fidelity mode and performance mode, whereas if you go on PC, it's a much more customizable experience of like high, medium, low, ultra settings, and tweaking lighting, tweaking shadows, tweaking all of these visual filters that can adjust frame rate and visuals to where you kind of want to settle, where it's like, okay, this looks good for me, and it's at 60 frames, and just tweaking it that way. I'm waiting for consoles to get to that point, because right now we're looking at a potential situation where you could either turn on ray tracing and get the PS5 Pro Enhanced label, or you could go from 1080p to 1260p and get the PS5 Pro Enhanced label, which is hilarious. And I'm sorry, but are you really going to notice that difference? Are you sure about that? I can understand like 1440 to 4K. I can see something like that, and that is a big deal for a lot of people. But are you really going to notice that kind of jump? I don't know. And that won't be the case for every game, but it's still something worth calling out in my personal opinion. And I do see a placebo effect incoming with this sort of tech, because a lot of people want to believe what they're seeing. And so it's best not to just sit here and guess. Let's ask experts, right? Like Digital Foundry. Now, I do want to say, in fairness, this could feed into what many would consider FUD surrounding the PS5 Pro. Right now, there is no tangible evidence of the claims potentially being made here by Digital Foundry. It is Rockstar we're talking about in just a moment here with GTA 6, and no one's played GTA 6 except Rockstar developers. Now here, the title of this IGN article is, will PS5 Pro run GTA 6 at 4K 60? Probably not, says the experts. And this has been the really big talking point, to my surprise, for the PS5 Pro is, oh, it's going to sell if you can run GTA 6 at 4K 60. So much so that it's been a talking point that if I'm PlayStation, I pick up on this. If there's some way you can try to help and figure this out to get it at 4K 60, this would be very beneficial to them in getting those consoles sold in long tail, just not the short term. Quote, I think there's good evidence to suggest that the GTA 6 trailer from last year was running on either PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, says Richard Ledbeater, technology editor at Digital Foundry. Continuing on, they say frame rates, though, are an entirely different thing. When asked if GTA 6 could realistically run at 60 frames per second on PS5 Pro, Ledbeater is blunt in his analysis. No, Grand Theft Auto games have always run complex simulations that push the CPU hard, which is why every GTA game has initially launched on their target platforms at 30 FPS or lower. The PS5 Pro uses the same CPU as the PS5, and it would be extremely challenging to hit 60 FPS if the base PS5 version is targeting 60 frames per second. This isn't a GPU problem, it's a CPU problem. Of course, all bets are off if Rockstar is targeting 60 FPS on the standard PS5, but we've seen no evidence of that to suggest it is so far. Which again goes to what I talked about earlier, aside from this issue about price point. This is the PS5 Pro price point without an upgraded CPU, which is going to push this thing closer to $1,000 when we get to that next generation. Keep in mind that if you're looking at Xbox and PlayStation side by side, like Xbox is a major earner, if you will, when it comes to the overall Microsoft ecosystem and the amount of income they need to drive into the company, but they're not like the number one. Whereas over on Sony, PlayStation is the biggest part of that company, and they make the most money over there. So I do wonder if the time is over where companies are not going to eat prices on hardware any longer. Still, the suggestion here, at least from Digital Foundry, who knows way more than me at least, is saying, yeah, it might still be 30 frames based on the type of games that Rockstar makes, and also that this is a very CPU-bound game, and there's no CPU changes on the PS5. So time will tell on that. I do think this could, again, feed into some FUD, but given that the talking point is this game is going to sell the PS5 Pro, you got to be aware that it might not run at 60 like some are expecting it to as they invest in it. Continuing on here, I wanted to talk a bit about changes PlayStation is making on the back end. I think they have quietly had a pretty lackluster year, and the only difference is that Xbox has had more seismic problems with things such as shutting down almost 4 studios at one point. So when PlayStation does things like this, quietly increasing the price of the DualSense controller worldwide, you'll see here that it's not the end of the world. It's a $5 jump across all the different versions of the DualSense. But I look at this in congruence with what's happening with Concord. I look at this alongside the PS5 Pro, and really you have 2 bright spots in the year. You have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which was excellent, and you have Astrobot, which was also excellent. So PlayStation has not had such a terrible year that they're putting out awful games across the board, but they did put out the biggest flop ever in gaming as far as I'm concerned. They're having a big problem here with this hardware in the terms of convincing an enthusiast like me to pick it up. And then you look at little price bumps like this, and I do think just accountability in general is important. I saw articles going around saying like this is Xbox's fault that PlayStation is able to charge this much money, but this goes back to what I said about being Apple, and they're living in their own ecosystem, and I think they were going to charge this even if Xbox was dominating the competition. I don't know if PlayStation is as worried about Xbox as maybe they were at the top of the generation. Maybe they're worried in the future when it comes to Xbox being a big earner and having more money in them to buy out exclusive deals, but since Xbox doesn't seem that interested in exclusive deals, I don't know how worried they actually are at this point, where again, I think PlayStation just operates in its own field. Nintendo pretending they're not there is also kind of ridiculous, because Nintendo does do their own thing and does ask for people's time and money and all that good stuff. So I don't see the difference there where it's just Xbox, where I just think accountability is important, and I don't think a lot of people are talking fairly about the type of year PlayStation is having as well, which is not a great one as far as I'm concerned. I say this as someone who still plays their PS5 frequently, although I'm sure a lot of people think I'm always having an Xbox controller glued to my hands. With that, ladies and gentlemen, those are my thoughts on what's going on here with the PS5 Pro situation and how it continues to evolve. I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts down below, so fire away. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.